Hey, there we go. Recording.
Perfect. All right. Take it away, Kristina.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blockchain Versus. I am joined here with my co-host, Jeremy Born. We are sponsored, as always, by CoinGenius, and today we have a very special guest, Mr. John McAfee. John, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. I've enjoyed it already, just in the few minutes we've been chatting.
Oh, we're going to get into some fun stuff today. All right, so we will be kicking it off and we'll just kind of keep it simple, have a very organic conversation about your background in blockchain, kind of your passion, and where you see the future of blockchain going. But I'd like to dig in a little bit. We'll kind of back it all the way up. Do you mind me prying a bit into your childhood and how you grew up? I mean, how did you become John McAfee?
Yeah, okay, that's a good question. Yeah, and I'm not entirely sure. I know that in grade school, I was given access to the elementary school library. This is in a coal mining town in Virginia, in the middle of the Appalachians, called Norton, one of the poorest parts of America. We had nothing with the library or something. And I don't know why I stumbled on Robert Heinlein's Starship Troopers. And that started me off reading, not just reading, but reading specifically science fiction. Moving on to Arthur Clarke, and in the late 60s and 70s, Stanislaw Lem, and on and on. You know, the mind that falls in love with science fiction is going to fall in love with science, period. This is the way it works. I was a geek. I was just the prototypical elementary school, skinny, not even remotely outward going kid. So I lost myself in science fiction, and then later in science. You know, I've met a man in Abington, Virginia, through my father, that was an astronomer at William and Mary College, and you know, got to follow him around, look at the craters of the moon, and the rings of Saturn, and I was in love. And the heart of science is all science. I don't care whether it's biology, physics, you name it. The heart of all science is mathematics. And so I studied math, not because I had the sense to know that whatever would be coming up, we had to use it, but because it came easy to me. And I'm just a lazy motherfucker. This is the facts of life. So, I majored in math. I was stellar. You know, graduated with honors, got a graduate teaching assistantship at Louisiana State University. Went there in grad school, and then just lost it. I was not learning anything anymore. I mean, listen, I could read a math book. I didn't need to go to 3 fucking months of some person babbling what I just understood in the first few hours. That ended my formal education. I got thrown out because I was dating one of my students who got pregnant. And anyway, it was a mess. But I still continued. I've enrolled then in Virginia Polytechnic Institute, one of the great engineering schools, in advanced mathematics, and did a semester there. But then I encountered in the summer of 1969, 68, computers. I got a job as a programmer trainee in General Electric's process automation division, the very first real world application of digital science. And I cut my teeth in the hardware and the limited software that we had at the time. There were no multitasking operating systems at that time. It was a single thread. You had one massive program with one massive function. Mine, I was assigned to automate the Australia Iron and steel mill in Port Kembla, New South Wales in Australia. And Jesus, I was on cloud 9. I was living. Robert Heinlein had just hinted about in some of his futuristic novels. And I'm there. And I became so good, so well known, I was in demand. I moved quickly to NASA's, the National Aeronautic and Space Administration's Institute for Space Studies in Manhattan. And good God, did I meet people and see things. And, again, I was living the technology dream. And that's been my life of, working because I love it, and then playing because I cannot tolerate a life full of just work. So those two competing principles have created the person you're listening to right now.
Oh, that's incredible. It's really great to hear your background and, how you grew up and what interested you most. I can definitely, sympathize with, the fact that, formalized schooling versus just overall curiosity, is typically trumped by that curiosity, right?
Oh, absolutely. You can't teach passion
You can't.
in a formal environment. Why? The formal environment, by its own formality, denies the possibility of passion as part of the system. So it's without the passion, you're lost in life, because it's the passion that drives you to work 20 hours a day, 7 days a week for 2 to 3 years, because you absolutely love what you're doing. Not what money may come from it, not what fame, not what big ass company. Who gives a shit when you're in the middle of the battle? What's coming the next day? Let's just hope we're all still breathing. And so this was my life. When I started McAfee, that's all I fucking did. And that's called passion. You can't teach that. Only life teaches it. And to get any sort of learning from an unstructured source like all of life, you've got to abandon everything you know or you think you know, and you have to open your heart to the unexpected and sometimes the unbelievable.
I couldn't agree more. It's about passion and putting your whole heart into this. And this is, how we approach business every single day. And the people that we bring on our team, we're very selective because we can only bring on others that share that or have the opportunity to share that passion. So
yeah,
obviously given some of the background, so you talked a little bit about McAfee antivirus, and obviously I can see and sense now based on your background, a natural evolution in the cybersecurity space. Can you talk about the creation of McAfee antivirus and how that grew over time and evolved into what you are in now, which is the global blockchain and cryptocurrency community?
Especially your startup days. I'd love to hear your opinion on the startup mentality. I mean, we're definitely living in that passion, that 20 hours a day. And, it's once you catch that bug, you can't let it go.
Yeah, well, here's something that I've learned. I've started, McAfee was not my first success. If you dig into it, years before, I had designed one of the world's first voice recognition systems and sold it to interstate voice products for more money than I'd ever dreamed of. And then a few years later, developed a number of computer security products not relating to viruses, which I sold to various companies. So by the time McAfee came along, I was just a serial fucking entrepreneur. Now, here's what I have learned in my life. You can't just sit down and say, I have an idea or a plan, and put yourself to the task of making it real and expect it to be a success. It won't be and can't be life. People does not work that way. Let me give you examples of people who I personally have known and do know. Bill Gates. Why was Microsoft a success? Had nothing to do with anything Bill Gates had planned or was doing. It had to do with the fact that IBM, in order to answer the call to Apple's only personal computer in the world, built the IBM PC. without an operating system. But they did use the Intel 8086 chip as the driving force for their engine. There were only two operating systems available. First was DDoS. Another was Microsoft's DOS. One was in San Diego. Microsoft was in Seattle. IBM chose the San Diego company first. It had been around longer and had more employees. Said, here's the deal, we want it signed now. This is of utmost importance. They offered just a pittance in terms of money. However, they did offer them exclusivity to the operating system for that and all future IBM PCs. So they said, we'll have to have our lawyers look at it. IBM said, well, go ahead and do that. They packed up, they flew up to Seattle. They made Bill Gates the same offer. He was smart enough to see that what he was getting right now was nothing compared to what was coming. He could not have planned that, people. Now, he signed on the dotted line immediately, and the rest is history. The San Diego company folded a few months later and disappeared, and Bill Gates became one of the world's most powerful men. How did I start McAfee antivirus? Do you think I sat down and go, viruses are out there? Like, no. Here's how it happened. First of all, the word computer virus did not exist prior to 1987. Its first use was in the spring of that year in reference to a program written by two brothers in Lahore, Pakistan, who owned a computer repair shop. And they wrote a virus, the world's first, and called it the Pakistani brain. And then installed it on some computers that they had repaired, and it spread all over the world. Well, I'd never heard of such a thing. And my brother-in-law was reading the paper. It was a Sunday morning and said, here's an article on the back page of the Mercury News, a thing called computer virus. I said, what? Give me that. I read through it. I instantly saw, oh, here's how they did that. And I was impressed because computer viruses are as close to living things as you will ever get. They have two functions: survive and spread, just like every life form on Earth. That's why it grabbed me. And instantly, within an hour, I had written a program and put it up on my own computer bulletin board system. We didn't have the internet back then, folks. On the computer bulletin board system. A week later, I had 1 million downloads. 2 months later, I had $10 million in the bank. It was as simple as that. I did not plan anything. What did I do? I quit my job instantly, knowing that this is the biggest risk I'll ever be taking. Instantly, never went back to work, but I didn't have time, and applied myself 18 hours a day from that moment on, until McAfee was sold for $7 billion to Intel a few years back, who then sued me and said I could not use my own name. This is an odd aspect of business, my friends.
Interesting. So through all those experiences, as an entrepreneur myself, very curious, what is the one piece of advice that you would give aspiring entrepreneurs that leads to success outside of just passion alone, right? Is it timing? And
if you have the passion, then you will notice the opportunities. Now, opportunity is not, oh, here's an opportunity that might bear fruit in 20 years. Well, maybe if you're Chinese and you live 19 people to a room and you can afford risks of that length and magnitude, cool. Otherwise, you make business, you make product, you help the world, you create by taking an opportunity. And there is no opportunity that's real that's not going to cost you something. Your job, your security, money for a while. You're going to have to bear one hell of a risk for every opportunity you take on. But if that's how you live your life, you will be the greatest success in whatever it is you choose to do, people. That's the only advice I can give you.
That's incredible. Wow. So, we're transitioning from childhood to schooling, to the evolution of John McAfee and getting into the cybersecurity world and creating multiple successes. And it's great to hear about previous successes I hadn't known about prior to this. So moving on from cybersecurity into blockchain and crypto, obviously there's, a lot of correlations there, and it's something that I can see as a natural evolution into the space because it's, evolving not only cybersecurity, but it's also evolving security in general and the way in which we transact across the globe with no barriers. So you want to kind of allude to how you transitioned into space and what got you most.
My transition had much more to do with society and individual freedom than it had to do with security. Although the blockchain is the ultimate security tool if you apply it properly. No, it had to do with the fact that I saw, in the context of a trustless and permissionless monetary system, I saw the potential freedom for all people. Because if you look at the chain of obligations, responsibilities, fears, and control that are applied externally to you, mostly by a corrupt government, you will find that the financial control trumps them all. Without the US dollar and access to it, you can't pay your rent, send your kids to school, buy food, buy clothes, get a car, get insurance or shelter. You're done for. Now tell me this is not the most powerful of all incentives to obey the demands of the government that we created in order to fucking serve us, people. So now, within this permissionless and trustless environment sprang a collection of new technologies, like the Bitcoin fertilized the soil, and then along came some serious goddamn seeds, privacy coins, smart contracts, distributed applications. Good God, do you see the possibilities here, people? Now, this is also the first world-changing technology. And if you think it's not world-changing, please move out of your mother's basements and smell the coffee. No, it is world-changing.
Love it.
It's world-changing. And the first one in 200 years, it had not come from a major corporation or from the bowels of some secret government program. In both cases, technology that we as people cannot access. Do you understand? Technology is a force and is a weapon today. If you doubt that, imagine yourself sitting in this president's chairs on Monday, looking at a computer screen, looking at this person here. How do I whack him? But thank you. And pressing the fucking button. You think this is not technology as weapons? You are wrong. But the blockchain sprang from the people and was open source, the concept. And the first Bitcoin, God bless its grandfatherly soul, opened the door. But through that door came things far more magnificent than that elderly and well-respected grandfather, who really needs to be put to bed soon. But in any case, through that door opened by Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin's blockchain, have come miraculous things that can be used by we, the people, to free ourselves from this cage of financial slavery by being forced to use something over which we have no control. It can be inflated beyond belief at the slightest whim by the Fed, whoever the fuck they are. There's a mystery that needs unraveling, folks. No, to free yourself from that. But what are you doing instead? You've been given a golden key. Just reach around, unlock your cage, and get out. What are you doing with it? scratching your asses by using crypto as a means to get rich quick. I'm going to go onto the market and see the price of things. Who gives a shit what the price is? Use these coins. Do you realize there are tens of thousands of us who have abandoned completely the insane system of fiat that has been propagated by governments around the fucking world? And we buy nothing that can't be bought with crypto. And we do no fucking work for payment in anything other than crypto, and we're surviving, people. No, yes, it is not convenient sometimes. We can't go down to the random fucking coffee shop and pay DAI for a goddamn latte. No, we can't do that yet. But if we get on board with this soon, we will. Do you understand? Take charge of your life, for fuck's sake. Take this gift, which is the equivalent of the gods coming down and giving the gift of fire to a cold and dark world for a prehistoric man. Good God, can you not see this?
I love it. John, I'd like to take that slightly further. Some of our audience is not as familiar with blockchain, the underlying technology, or crypto, the applications on top of it, or even AI interoperability within blockchains and where we can evolve from there. Jeremy and I come from a big data background, and so to us, it's all data and access to data and democratizing that data. But one of the things that I would like to ask you specifically about is if you take cybersecurity and the immutability of blockchain, the whole concept is that it can't be hacked, right? Unless you get an over 51% attack. But then if you take that further, as you mentioned, technology as weapons, with the concept of quantum computing, there's theoretical questions as to whether or not cryptocurrencies and blockchain will be safe. Will that come to an eventuality, or is that something that we just need to combat over the next 10 years with user experience and enhanced approaches?
Well, there's a lot of questions covering some of the deepest territory that's seldom explored these days, and I'll try to do justice with my answer. First, let's talk about our current situation. Forget about tomorrow. Let's look at our current situation. You come from big data. Well, if your data is big enough, one of the things you do understand is you have no protection for it. End of fucking story. Why? Because if it's big enough, you have an organization that's big enough to have an idiot working for it somewhere. And usually, if numbers can be trusted, more than 10% of your workforce is incompetent beyond description. Now, why does that matter? Because there are no more technical threats to data, people. People worry about, oh, I'm encrypting my data between here and there. Who gives a shit? There's nobody listening. Used to be called the man in the middle attack. Well, that chair has been empty, people, for 6 years. No one's in the middle. Why bother? Your smartphone is on both ends. Do you understand? And before you encrypt something, you have to download it or type the fucker in. Well, who do you think's watching? That same fucking system that's watching for you to mention shoes, brown loafers, blue tie, or something, so that immediately someone can sell you those brown loafers or blue tie. An innocuous function any rational business person might put into their fucking phones. Yeah, that's great if we lived in a perfect world and everybody was loving and kind and happy and gracious and generous. But unfortunately, there are some of us, not many perhaps, that actually have been angry or even jealous, Uh, envy is not, it's an ugly one. I don't know. I've never felt it, never heard anybody feel, but all I hear is ugly, lusty. Some people lose their minds if their gonads have even a fraction of a second to take control. So no, we are a mixed fucking bag, people. Good God Almighty. We have no security anymore. We have not had security for 10 years. And we will not ever have security and privacy again unless you first accept that you've already lost it. Now, the question, can the blockchain be used? Absolutely. But people, do you know what's happening now, today? Even though we own this technology as people through open source, and good God, if you're involved in a project which is not open source, ring a fucking bell and tell people to ignore them because they will amount to nothing. If it's open source, it's ours. And unfortunately, it's also the government's. And they are now using their internal brain power, as slow as it goes. It is in fact monumental and magnified by the number of thinkers. Still, they're not using it for our benefit. No, they're using it to monitor and control us. And they're trying, and they will, I promise you, these two things will happen. Privacy coins will be outlawed worldwide. I mean, I don't know why that would be of a concern to anyone, because for 75 years, marijuana was outlawed in America, and then never did I meet a weed smoker who decided to stop smoking because it was illegal. Please wake up. We're going to continue to use it. They will lose this war. The question is, how long is it going to take? But they will make them illegal. And number two, they will come out with their own magical blockchain-based cryptocurrencies. But those cryptocurrencies are not the ones that will free you people. They are the ones that will enslave you further down to the very penny and the instant of your earning it and spending it. One of the greatest of all privacies that we deserve, and as written into the Bill of Rights, is gone. What we do with our money and where we get it is no longer private. Governments say, well, I mean, you might be doing something bad, therefore. Do you see where that logic leads? It leads to Hitler's SS, where children turned their parents in, knowing they would be executed simply because they weren't allowed to eat their chocolate that morning. This is actually fucking the truth, and this is what will be happening in America soon if we don't stop it. And I've wandered on too long on that, and we're running out of time. We have time for one more question.
Okay, sounds good. Well, obviously, there's a lot going on in the macro economy, in this global economy, especially with the coronavirus and things that are happening in China. If you wouldn't mind, if you have time for two questions, and the reason why is because this is a really important topic. And then lastly, I really wanted you to describe for the layman the mathematics behind Bitcoin and pricing and things like that, because I think that's really important given your background. But as it relates to the coronavirus and things that are happening in China, you see cities literally being shut down. You see this affecting the supply chain, manufacturing, and obviously there's going to be a trickle down effect. We have our analysts internally monitoring this every single week. We're putting out content, and it's just really interesting to see what's happening. We have our own views, but what are your views in terms of how this is ultimately going to play out and affect?
Okay, this is going to have to be your question, because this is at least a 2-minute answer. I'll do the coronavirus. Okay. All right. Number one, people, I'm a mathematician. Numbers gotta go. They gotta add up for me. Else I will be perpetually unhappy. So now, I'm interested in only one thing. What's the death rate from the coronavirus? Because the death rate from the standard flu is 0.17%. Okay, 1 in 1,000, 2 in 1,000. Big fucking deal. They're always elderly or young kids. Okay, that's 0.17. Now, the death rate of the coronavirus, as reported by Wuhan, was almost 2%. That's 10 times the flu death rate. Not acceptable. That's 2 in 100. 2 in 1,000, no one notices. Granddad's gone. That weak little baby who was in the incubator's gone. That's happened. But no, 2%. That's a little high. But now I started digging. What's happening in Wuhan? They're collecting people and keeping them in outdoor stadiums, as an example, without heat after they tested positive for the fucking virus. Now, I promise you, you take a flu patient that requires hospitalization and you drag their ass outside, they're going to die. I'm sorry. It's just going to happen. It has nothing to do with the deadly nature of the virus. It simply has to do with keep the patient warm and well hydrated. Water shortages. Okay, so now, why don't you, please, people, don't believe a word I say or anybody. You have a resource called Google. Look the fucker up. Look for the coronavirus death rate in China outside of major cities. In the major cities, they have concentration camps. So what is the death rate outside? 0.16%. Less marginally than the normal goddamn flu. People, see what is happening if this is not a false fucking flag created by the Chinese and God knows with whoever else's help or approval, including the US's for all I fucking know. There is something bad about to happen that's got nothing whatsoever to do with the coronavirus in reality, but everything to do with it in the minds of us, believers or non-believers. Be a non-believer of everything, people, until proven with your own eyes, ears, or brain to be otherwise. And thank you very much for having me on your program.
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you, John. Really appreciate it.
All right.
Have a good one.
You take care.